Hi Gene, how are you doing today?
Pretty fair.
Good. How was the traffic to
Horrible.
here? It's
Like it
always
usually is coming up here, horrible.
yeah.
No wrecks today, thank God.
Yeah, things because it's Saturday. I mean, everybody likes to, crash their car on Saturdays. But anyway, so today we're gonna have a specific topic that we're gonna talk about, and I don't really like to get you back to those moments of the plane crash, but many people were asking some questions even after our first interview, so we're just gonna try our best to answer those questions today. So before we start, I just want to know, what was the tone of that evening before the final flight? Like, how did people, were people like freaking out? Because I know that the first accident happened, before the actual crash. So how are people reacting? How are they dealing with the stress? Were they like, okay, let's just fly? Or they were like panicking and trying to get, other alternative ways to get to the concert?
Well, some of them were, I wasn't in the room at the time, you say panicking. There were a couple of them, several of them were scared of the plane after the incident leaving Lakeland when it backfired out the right engine. A couple of the girls, they wanted to fly commercial. A couple of the guys, I think maybe Billy, and Dean, they were scared of it. And they didn't want to fly on it. And in that conversation they were having, at that time I wasn't there, they were having a band meeting and whatever else, and they were talking about the plane, and some were scared, and let's call it the management side. The management side was feeding them the wrong information, keep them on the plane, and some of them were upset, and they had at the last minute, Ronnie just told them, either get on the plane or you're fired, but he was getting management and the pilots feeding him information, and so he didn't know. And they didn't, none of them knew actually what was really going on. And Ronnie at the last minute told them, get on the plane or you're gone. But some of them were upset. Okay, and talking about the management, was it Peter Rouge who was the manager back then for Lynyrd Skynyrd? Peter Rouge, yeah. Yeah, did he ever mention this crash in his maybe next projects that he did? Did he ever consider that it might be his fault that the plane crash happened? Not that I know of. And he was kind of truthfully speaking, unaware of the situation. The road manager is the person that got the people to get the plane, and the road manager is the one that actually wrote the contract with the leasing company. And actually, he was leaving on the plane flying to Jacksonville when they stopped him and said, you haven't give us the contract, you haven't signed the contract. Mm-hmm. And he had to turn the plane around and go back and sign the contract, and it was in his briefcase. We never knew that. Nobody knew the contract. I wish I had have known it, but nobody knew it. So is it true that authorities found piles of cash in the suitcase of one of the pilots? I believe it was Walter McCrary. He may have had some cash, but he wouldn't have had piles of cash, because the way the contract read that we found out later when our lawyer got a hold of it, the contract put the band in charge of the plane, everything, flying the plane, fueling the plane, maintenance of the plane, which was all BS. When our lawyer saw that, when he finally got the contract from Ron Eckerman, he went, when we read it, he went, who would do this? Who would sign a piece of paper? Who would try to put a band in charge of a plane? You can't do that. He said, this is not what the paper's written on. Yeah. And he didn't know who signed it. And he says, whose signature is this? And I looked, it's Ron Eckerman's signature. He went, okay.
So basically, authorities found some cash on the crash site of the plane, and fans were just wondering: was this cash like could have it been used for like maybe, I don't know, the fuel for the plane?
Well, Ron Ackerman was paying for the fuel and paying for the fuel stops and the fueling and stuff like that, and we had done a couple of shows. And he would have cash on him in his briefcase, band money, and he would have, I doubt he would have any of his own money in his briefcase, but he would have band money in there to pay stuff with and collect from the show the night before and a couple of shows. There was quite a bit of cash money in the briefcases, and he says some of the cash money was stolen.
No. Because you see in the movie, they show one scene when there is a tent, and in a tent, they have like everything. There were like piles of cash, a bunch of drugs, also in the suitcase.
Now, where you see this from?
The Street Survivors movie.
Oh, in the Street Survivors movie. Oh. That's all BS. Everything in that whole movie is BS. Capital B, capital S.
Yeah, so, that was...
There was no drugs on the plane.
Why did they show it in the... I mean, maybe it's for the cinematic effect, I don't know.
And if it would have been any drugs on the plane, they'd have done all the drugs before they got off of the ground. So
exactly, that's what I was thinking.
There was no, believe me, in the FAA report, there was no drugs found on the plane. There may have been some prescription pills, sleeping pills, because when Ronnie had taken the 2 sleeping pills he got from one of the girls, and I'm sure there was prescription medication, but there was no illegal drugs found on the plane. Maybe a little bit of marijuana, but nothing to be registered.
Okay. And do you remember who else was sitting basically in the area of the cabin with Ronnie? Because in the movie, Artimus mentioned that Ronnie was actually stuck by the unsecured TV, which is, he explained it that like it was basically, I think with the rock bands that they didn't have like, you know, like regular planes atmosphere. It was all like insecure and shaky and all of that. So he mentioned that Ronnie was struck by the TV screen. Is that true? Or
no, on the airplane. If my memory serves me right, there was no TV on the airplane. There was none of that electronic stuff on that old plane. None of that. No games, nothing. There was no TV on the plane that I'm aware of. There was boom boxes, but there was no TV. And Ronnie wasn't struck by anything except he had a little bang behind his ear and a fractured femur. He hit the table that he was laying under when I got him up off of the floor and set him between Alan and Gary. And start this story from the beginning. When we started, like you were talking about, they were having a meeting the night before, drinking and tooting and whatever else they were doing. JoJo had been called in, because she knew everybody's alias. She was calling the rooms trying to get with Ronnie, to talk with Ronnie about trying to get her job back. She had been fired. And he had been up all night. They had been up all night. And so when we got on the plane, he told me, he said, I got to get some sleep. I got 2 sleeping pills from one of the girls. He says, and man, I've been up all night. I got to get some sleep. I got to lay down, and I can't lay on these seats. So on the couch, I wish I had a piece of paper I could draw you the picture. There was a couch there that would hold actually 4 people. At the time, Kevin Nelson was sitting against the bulkhead, Alan and Gary and Kevin Nelson. And there was about a 2x6 table in front of the couch that you could set a drink on or
like
whatever.
Like a coffee table, basically.
Yeah, and you could put your feet on it. So I told the boys, I'd pick your feet up, put your foot on the table, and laid Ronnie down underneath their feet and give him his hat. And he went to sleep, was zonked out under their feet. So when we started running out of fuel and having the problem with the plane, he was zonked out. Had no idea, nothing was going on. And me going back and forth to the pilots, cussing them out, and I would kick him in the ribs. I go, but get up, man, and I'd go in there and argue with the pilots. And come back, and they said, strap everybody in, make sure everybody's strapped in. And I think Artimus came, and he's the only one I remember getting up and going to the cockpit and speaking briefly with the pilots. And he came back white-faced with a horrible look on his face, horror, and he went back to his seat. And everybody gets strapped in, and I went back up there arguing with him again, cussing with him, cussing him out. And I'd kick Ronnie. I said, get up, man. And I went up there and argued with him. I said, well, and they were trying to make this field, and they were paddling the plane, talking to Houston on their things, and they were fighting the plane. And I run back. This was the third time, and I told him, get up, man, get up. And so I went back to the cockpit because I was mad. I was mad, and I seen the plane
45 degrees already.
It had lost its airspeed, and so we wasn't coming down like this. It started to nosedive down, and I seen we wasn't gonna make the field. And I said, see, we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it. See what you've done? I said, now we're, And so I said, I hope you two guys live through this so I can beat you to death. And I seen we wasn't going to make it. And I knew Ronnie was still on the floor. I just run and grabbed him, and he was unconscious, groggy as hell. Well, man, I got to get some rest. And I pushed him between Alan and Gary. He's fighting back. He said, man, I got to get some sleep. Don't be messing around. He thought I was messing with him. And he didn't use that word. And he was ready to fight. And I said, man, the plane's crashing. And I got his seatbelt snapped. And I picked this pillow. I don't know where his hat was at that time. I had a pillow there. I go, put your head down, man. And he was fighting me, trying to get up. He was trying to get up. He was ready to fight because he didn't know the plane was crashing. He thought I was joking the whole time I was saying it. And I slapped him. I said, the plane's crashing. About that time, somebody said, trees. We started hitting the trees, so I started to run back to my seat, but I was actually running uphill, and the plane hit the ground at a 52-degree angle. And so a step or two was all I could make. And then wherever that part of the plane where the plane fractured and opened up is where I went through it. And obviously I made it far enough that when I went through the fuselage, I went up under the engine, the right wing. And that's where I laid for a couple hours before when they started getting the people out of the plane. They got Billy and set him on part of the wing that was there. And Billy's the one that I crawled up under the wing. And Billy's the one that hollered for help to come help me because he said, there's Gene Odom, and it was a couple hours after the crash that I had came out, had crawled out on my own, and people walked by. The responders said, of course it was pitch black dark. Dwayne Easley, the responders said, we walked by and we didn't see you under the wing, And when you crawled out, and Billy cried for everybody to come, somebody help me, then they come over and started helping me.
So as far as I understand from what you were saying, there wasn't like stuff like, hippie handshake because in the movie, Ronnie was going around the plane and he was like, I love you guys. And then he was drinking, I believe, whiskey or something.
No.
I mean, that doesn't
Ronnie
make any
Van
sense.
Zant, when I got him off the floor and set him in the couch, within 3 or 4 seconds, the plane hit the ground and he was knocked unconscious. Ronnie actually died from asphyxiation when he unsnapped his seatbelt. If he hadn't unsnapped his seatbelt, he'd probably still be alive. But the forcing impact forced him down on top of that table. And then the other guys were on top of him and loose stuff. And he was under the bottom of them. Actually, he was forced on top of Steve and Dean of the crunching of the impact of the plane, because Alan and Gary and Kevin Elson were kind of tilted upward because the plane twisted. And that's what were holding them in was their seatbelts. And I wasn't sure you unsnapped the seatbelt for years until I seen the stuff that the guys have there, the airplane crash cockpit and souvenirs that they have. They had seat belts that had been cut, and the 4 seat belts was on the couch in the front were red, and the other seat belts for the plane were gray. And 3 of those red seat belts that they had were cut. Alan, Gary, and Kevin Nelson's. The whole seat belt, red seat belt, was the one Ronnie unsnapped. And if he hadn't unsnapped his seat belt, he would quite possibly still be alive. But he was so mad, and he was ready to fight. He was coming up out of that chair because he thought I was messing with him. And he was groggy, so groggy that he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know he died not knowing the plane was crashing. Not realizing the plane was crashing.
Maybe that's for the best, maybe. But also in the movie, Artimus mentioned that the pilots were completely incompetent, I would say, because there was a scene with like a junior pilot, I think, and if I remember correctly, in the scene he stated that this is his first time flying the rock band, but I'm not sure if he also said that this is his first time flying at all, in general.
Our main pilot had quit and went to work for a big airlines. So they moved the co-pilot up to pilot status, and they made the mechanic engineer guy, which would have been John Gray, co-pilot. And that was the first time that he was an actual co-pilot, but the co-pilot wasn't flying the plane. Walter McQuarrie was flying the plane. He was the pilot. He was the one that was fighting control of everything, trying to find out why he was out of fuel. He was flying the plane. And again, I had to reiterate, in I don't even want to use his name, I'm going to say Delmer's movie, Street Survivors movie, nothing. But I haven't saw it because I won't see it. But what people have told me and everything is that nothing in his movie is real. Nothing in it is true. Nothing that I've been told in his movie is true. So you can't believe nothing in that movie.
You know that you have a character of yourself in that movie as well,
Somebody
right?
said that there was a guy playing me in there. I think me and Ronnie were playing poker or something.
Yeah, but it just came so fast that you cannot really, see it because it's like you blink and then it's gone, like the next scene started.
That movie was about Artimus. It wasn't about the Lynyrd Skynyrd plane crash or the Lynyrd Skynyrd. When he first started it, I called it a psychotic fairy tale. And that's exactly what it turned out to be, because I know the guy. Nothing in his movie is real or true.
Also, I really wanted to ask you, again, consider, and this is like, I was interested about it because it just seemed a little bit weird. So in the movie, when they had parties, they were like topless girls, walking around the hotel rooms or anything. Did this really happen in real life? Like, did they have party like that?
Yeah.
Oh, they did?
All rock and roll bands have parties like that. I mean, because when you're a star or a rock and roll musician, there's all the women and girls you want are available, and all the parties and stuff like that. I mean, it's the lifestyle of the, I'm a rock star, or, party like a rock star. There was women and girls who just, if that was in the movie, that would be true.
Okay, did you ever had to deal with, like, for example, crazy girlfriend that like wanted to stay with Ronnie by Ronnie's side or something like that, and she needed to go already because... Yeah,
a lot of times, some of them get on stage and they want to meet Lynyrd, they want to see Lynyrd and Ronnie, and yeah.
How would you usually handle it?
Gentle, okay, you need to, you can't be on the stage or in public, if when I was with him, he spent years and years and years and years without Gene Odom. I was on with him a short time. You handle him, say, hey, okay, you want to do an autograph? Yeah, okay, I'll do it. Okay, no problem. Or, hey, speak for a second, but we're busy, And a lot of times if we were eating or whatever in a restaurant or whatever, I would tell people to don't. But he was mostly I don't know what he did before I came with him, but he wanted to change, and they were handled gently.
Now, how did Ronnie actually behave with the fans, like especially with the crazy one? Like, would he ever like notice that the person is like super obsessed with him or something?
Well, I can't speak for the times I wasn't with him, but you keep the security. You have other security, or hotel security, or whatever. Or generally, when you're a star like Ronnie was, when you were like going to the hotels and places, you didn't lollygag around, you know. And the other band members, i.e., Delmer and those people that aren't stars, they like to, you know, make attention. You know, like hey, I'm a rock star. You know, but the real stars, they avoid the crowds and they avoid the attention because of the attention that they'll draw. The other people that aren't the stars want to draw the attention, and you kind of avoid being in that situation. Like you can stop that situation before it starts, you know. Get on it, get in there, go straight to the elevator, or go straight to your room, you know, and then later on they come down to the bar. The first place the other people go when they hit a hotel is the bar. They go to the room, take their bags, and they go to the bar, you know. It's a routine they have.
And is there anything else you would like people to know about October 20th of 1977? Did anything special happen during that time?
Limousine drivers didn't show up at the hotel, and that put us an hour and a half behind schedule. And we finally, when Leslie did my movie, Leslie mentioned of limousines. Of course, you forget. But the limousine drivers never showed up, so we took taxi cabs. We piled everything and everybody in taxi cabs and went to the airport ready to go. And then Artimus, he lived in the area. He wasn't there. He didn't show up for 45 minutes or an hour or so with his entourage of people. And that left the little John engine in the back running, and it also ran out of fuel. So he finally showed up. We took off. But as for anything else on the 20th, that's the only thing that I can think of is that nightmarish airplane crash we had, and getting to the airport. That whole package is a horror story in itself.
Can you also talk a little bit about the legacy of the band? Is there maybe any 1, 2, 3, or even 5 memories that you can share that are really important to you about Lynyrd Skynyrd? Or 2 memories, whatever you have, which are like the most important.
Yeah, there's a lot of memories, you know, of Alan, Gary, Ronnie, you know, Steve. Here's one about Steve. He was moving into his new house just as we were going to leave. And they had a white van. And Ronnie had asked him, we were helping him move. And Ronnie had gave him a stockholder agreement to sign, and it was on the table. And we moved everything in there, you know, and the stockholder agreement was on the table. And he never had a chance to sign it. He forgot to sign it. And so on the plane, leaving, he told Ronnie, he said, I haven't signed it. I said, don't worry about it. You sign it when you come back. You're a member of the band. And he didn't sign the stockholder agreement. But we were moving, and about a day or so earlier, their cat had a bunch of kittens. And so we had loaded the van up with furniture and stuff to take to the new house. And Teresa got in the van and started up, and, you know, and that mother cat had put the babies in the cowl of the engine, cowl of the fan. And when she cranked the truck up, the van up, it just slaughtered them cats. This cat, you know, and she was all upset. That's a horrible memory. Too. Ooh, yeah, we're going to get rid of a bunch of cats at one time. But that's a hell of a memory that there. And we were moving them to the new house. And Steve, really didn't get a chance to move into his new house. You know,
Yeah, that's really sad.
barely moving in it, and and we went on tour. And the other memories and stories, there's just millions of them that I could come up with, but we could sit here for a month.
Now, coming back to the movie, so you mentioned that Artimus actually went to the pilot's cabin and then came back and sat down.
One time that I can remember, he went up there one time when we were coming down. It was just before I got running off the floor.
Mm-hmm. Was he like, when on his way back to his seat, was he like, telling people to fasten the seat belts and prepare for the impact? Did he do any of that? I don't
remember him saying that. Only thing I remember is him coming back with a white face and a look of shock on his face. That's what I remember.
And then, were anybody drinking on the plane?
There was always beer. Coca-Colas and beer. Had anybody had a beer, I'm sure. And Billy Powell always had a Bloody Mary. So he had his own Bloody Mary mix and stuff like that. So I'm sure he had a Billy Powell was, I'm going to say, high, if that's the term, drunk, tipsy, whatever, every afternoon, every evening. So on the plane, he was, I would call drunk. And if they smoked a lot of marijuana and cigarettes.
Oh, they were smoking in the plane?
On the plane?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure they did, because a couple times playing poker, one of them make a remark like, Gene's got I'd be laughing or doing something because those guys are easy to beat. If you sit in a room with somebody smoking marijuana or whatever, contact high, I think he called it. I said, I ain't high, I'm just laughing at you fools taking your money, but yeah, they smoked marijuana on the plane. And if they did other stuff, I'm sure they did, if it was available on there. Go in the bathroom or whatever, but I didn't see him do no cocaine or nothing like that on the plane, but smoke marijuana, yeah.
Now, did you have any flight attendants flying with you, or you were just like by yourself?
No, the flight attendant would have been Dean Kilpatrick, because he was everything for the band. I mean, Dean was cool, he was a good guy, but mixing their drinks, doing this, doing that, getting it in. No, there was no flight attendants on the plane.
Okay, that's interesting. And then can you also tell our viewers what to expect from the future videos?
Just expect the unexpected,
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of great stories, stuff. And on video, this Lynyrd Skynyrd stuff gets harder and harder. And it's easier when Victoria is delivering the questions, but this is difficult after all these years trying to talk about this and everything, and then especially talking about Delmer's movie. I knew from day one it would just be a smoke and mirrors. It's all about Artimus, and that's his stage name. The guy's name is Thomas Delmer Powell, and I don't like to use his stage name, but what was I saying?
What to expect in the next videos.
In the next video, we're going to do a couple of more, and y'all are going to come up with questions for her and Patty. Patty's in New York to deliver the questions, and we're going to do a couple of more, and then we're going to start doing Gene Odom Gone Wild YouTubes.
So guys, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment on the section below and ask your questions, so I'll be more than happy to ask those questions to Gene.